Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective, and today I have the first HP EliteBook that I'm featuring on this channel. It's actually pretty long overdue. This is the HP EliteBook 8460p, and this launched in the year 2011. This is a machine that I can describe as so close. It is a fantastic package of features, but there's also some pretty significant compromises that make this up as well. And you know what? If you can look past those compromises, this is a fantastic computer, and it was definitely some very serious competition at the time for the big players like Dell and Lenovo that were trying to corner the corporate market. Starting off with the specifications, this mainly came in three large flavors in terms of processor support: an i3, an i5, and an i7, and I will leave all of that information up on the screen for you to digest. And then it either came in an Intel HD 3000 graphics option, or it also came equipped with an AMD Radeon HD 6470M, if that was available. This particular unit has an i5-2520M, 4 gigabytes of RAM. The maximum was 16 gigabytes with 2 sticks of 8, and you are looking at DDR3 1333 megahertz. So with the basic specifications out of the way, let's go ahead and take a quick tour of the ports of this machine, because there are many. We're going to start with the left-hand side of the machine. We have our power plug. We have FireWire, of all things. We have 2 times USB 3.0. We do have our optical drive bay sitting out here. This could be swapped out for a second hard disk drive or SSD. And then right above it, we have a slot for an express card. Along the front, we actually do have something worth talking about. We do have a series of status indicator lights, very similar to what the MacBook Pro series used to have. We do have Wi-Fi, power, charging, and disk read-write. The biggest concern I have with these is that they're here, but they are so small and the lights are so dim, the room either has to be completely dark or you need to be at almost an eye level angle with these indicator lights. So if you tilt the machine up, you can read them, but other than that, they completely disappear into the chassis. We have our button that opens the latch system, and that's pretty much it for the front. Along the right hand side, we have 2 separate connectors, one for the headphone and one for the microphone. Moving further on down, we do have eSATA USB 2.0. We do have USB 2.0 with power delivery, and then we have our DisplayPort connector, followed by the exhaust area for the CPU and our Kensington lock slot. Lastly, along the back, we do have our spot for a 56K modem, VGA connector, and then our network connector as well. Now that we've gone ahead and toured all the ports, let's go ahead and take a look at the inside of the machine. There are a few things worth talking about. We do have a pretty standard looking keyboard here, and it does have some drainage through the chassis. So if liquids do get poured on this, they will make their way through the machine, hopefully with the main components unscathed. We do have 3 shortcut buttons here, one for Wi-Fi, one for internet, and one for killing the sound. Our power button is over here. We do have a point stick feature. This isn't track point. And on this one, it doesn't really seem to work. I've tried everything I can think of, and I cannot get that thing to behave properly. It might be a Windows 10 thing, I'm not sure. Some models will come equipped with a fingerprint reader, which is right about here. And oddly enough, even though this looks like a sticker, apparently this is a part number, and the top chassis also has a similar sticker that was available for this particular unit. The trackpad does have a function in the top left-hand corner. If you double tap that, it will completely shut off the trackpad. So if you're typing and you don't want to have an accidental press, or if you're using the point stick exclusively, you would just double tap. Now, normally I do not talk about what is up above the screen, but what we actually have there is not a web camera. It is essentially the HP's answer to the Lenovo ThinkLight. And while it is an admirable attempt, it does leave a lot to be desired. The low light performance is, it doesn't really compare. So it's a nice feature, and oddly enough, on this machine, no web camera is present, which is strange that they offered a series of business machines that did not have a web camera in 2011. One of the biggest downfalls of this computer is the screen. Reviewers noted this at the time, and time has not been kind to it. Generally, we refer to TN panels as being quite terrible. This one has such a low contrast ratio that it is very, very disappointing to say the least. So this screen only has a 200:1 contrast ratio, and it makes for a very lackluster performing screen. It came in two flavors, a 1366 by 768, which this is, and then a higher resolution 1600 by 900. The downside is, it doesn't matter which display you go with, they do have that lower contrast ratio, and that's one of the things that really kills this machine for me, is that the screen just isn't there. That is one compromise that was made that perhaps shouldn't have been. With all that being said, let's go ahead and quickly disassemble this unit. And that's probably one of my most favorite parts of this machine, is how streamlined and simple they made this process. You have two switches on the bottom here. The first switch unlocks the battery and allows you to eject it. And it is worth pointing out that we do have a dock connector here. So dock accessories were available for this unit. So if we slide this over to the middle position, we'll see a little bit of red showing. And if we push it all the way over, it will disconnect the battery and we can remove it. Now this is an aftermarket battery, but there were essentially four main battery options available, and I'll put them up on the screen here. A 3-cell 31 watt hour, a 6-cell 62 watt hour, a 6-cell long life 55 watt hour, and then a 9-cell 100 watt hour. And then there were two battery slices available for this thing, and they attached on the bottom of this machine. One was a 73 watt hour, and then one was another 100 watt hour battery option. So theoretically, you could be running around with 200 watt hours, but don't get too excited because of the CPUs in this weren't super energy efficient. You're not going to get, say, much more than anywhere from 5 to 7 hours on the 6 watt hour battery. So just temper your expectations accordingly. Once the battery has been removed, gaining access to the main components of the machine, and I kid you not, could not be easier. On this side here, we do have a second slider, and this isn't a second catch for the battery, it's how you get into the machine. You will note that there is a tiny screw hole. There would be a security screw potentially installed there to stop you from opening up the laptop. This one actually has the screw stored on the inside. So if we go ahead and move that catch over, we can literally lift the entire bottom panel, and we can see where the screw is stored right there. And then we have access to essentially all the key components without the need for any tools. So on the inside, I'll just give you the quick walk around. We do have our socketed CPU, which is a nice thing to see. We do have our cooling system, very easy to access and perform maintenance on. It's actually pretty awesome to see. The fan, I think, is actually a separate component that can be removed and cleaned or serviced, which is fantastic. You do have your RAM staring you right in the face, two slots stacked on top of one another. Over here we do have our Wi-Fi card and potentially a WWAN card if it was installed. There is no second slot, so it has to go in there. Over here we have access to the media bay. One screw allows you to pull that out, so it's not hot swappable, but it is still pretty speedy, and you could install a second drive there if you so chose. And then hanging out over here is a really neat setup with how they've designed the smart card reader. So you just simply hinge this up and out of the way, and then here you have your hard drive. You remove these two screws, the hard drive comes out, and then away you go. It really couldn't be simpler in a lot of ways. So I could very much see that this would be an attractive option to an IT department, simply because of how easy it would be to take apart and service. Like, this is absolutely fantastic. That is pretty much all the pieces that we would need to access or service. Everything is staring us right there. The only other thing that we would need to do, of course, is to remove the keyboard. So let me grab my screwdriver and I will quickly show you how that's done. We do have pictograms that tell us pretty much everything that we need to unscrew to remove it. So we just need to do a quick scan to find anything that is labeled keyboard. And we have two screws up here on either side of the dock connector that are labeled with the keyboard pictogram. So we do have one keyboard screw hiding over here, just in the corner where that fan is. So there is a trick. Once those 3 screws have been removed, there are some clips that need to be pressed downward. So they are located in very strange places. There's one here. And once those clips have been pushed in, we can actually just reach in and grab the keyboard and then flip it over. And we have 2 connectors underneath here. One is a large ribbon cable, which one can just simply use their fingernail to go and pull that one out. And then the other is for the point stick. And there's just a tiny ribbon there. We can flip that up with our fingernail and disconnect that. And our keyboard has been removed. And it gives us a pretty good indicator of how things are shielded here. Things look pretty clean, pretty nice, and this shield is all the way around. So disassembling beyond doing some simple maintenance is going to be pretty involved. At any rate, let's put it back together and draw some conclusions. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, so as you can see, boot time with an SSD even in the year 2020 is still really respectable. And to be brutally honest, even though I'm very critical of the screen, there is still an awful lot to like about this laptop. It is incredibly durable, very easy to service, lots of modular parts, good upgradability. There is a lot to like. If you're able to find one of these at a reasonable price, I think that you would be very satisfied with it, especially with all the spare parts being readily available for it. If you enjoy this sort of content, I'm going to encourage you to do the big 4. Please like the video, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, so the next time I feature a HP EliteBook, you'll be the first to know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.